Hello and welcome to another video in my ongoing series where I am developing a DPaint inspired pixel editor using my own custom C++ GUI framework. Now in the last video I showed you the palette modification tools and promised you that I will actually get around to plotting some pixels onto the canvas and turn this into, well, from a GUI demo into an actual working pixel editor. And we have got some basic drawing enabled at the moment. So before we get on to the actual drawing, let's just rearrange this palette so it's a bit more sensible for demonstration. I showed you all this last time. We can just select the palette, sort it by the colours, which is the hue, and sort these blocks out into gradients. This is not editing the colours at all, it's just rearranging their positions. Doesn't affect the canvas, as you can see. Just makes them a bit more sensible. This isn't my picture and it isn't my palette, so it's all over the place when you first load it. And then we'll just do that and do that. And what we'll also do is, because these are all very similar colours, we'll just merge those down. What that will do is that will reduce this block of colours here to colours that are similar within this threshold here. So there you go, that's freed up some colours at the end, which means we've got some different brighter colours we can use for demonstration purposes. And there we go. So we've got our tools at the top left for quick access, and we've got our tools along the side there. For even quicker access, use the buttons 1 to 0 on the keyboard. So 1 is pencil, 2 is eraser. You can see it changes here on the right and on the drop down. When you get to number 9, which is the rectangle, if you press it again, it jumps to the filled rectangle or back. There we go, and you press 0 once, it goes to circle, twice it goes to filled, backwards and forwards, but we want the pencil. We've also got colour modes there, using shift and 1 to 0. We've got colour, matte and shade implemented, we use colour at the moment. And yeah, let's just draw something onto this Warhammer. I believe it's a Warhammer picture, I've had it for years, I don't know actually. I don't know if I demonstrated that, but that can actually expand to a bigger size if you want it to. And this may seem a bit silly to you, but I think it's quite funny. Let's just make some googly eyes on this, whatever she is. There we go, so that's just basic drawing. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Or maybe not, let's actually show you some more stuff. So let's zoom out. So we can draw in any colour in the palette. We can also draw using transparency as a colour. So if I hold down the left mouse button, you can see the background shows through. I can undo that. If I set it to the right mouse button and hold down right, so we've got primary and secondary colours there. Very nice. And we'll just draw some transparency weirdly on the screen like that. So drawing's working. We can draw with any colour. We can draw with transparent. We use the left mouse button, and we can use the right mouse button. What else can we do? Right, so we've got mask. So at the moment we've got canvas masking. So we go from hide options down to canvas. It opens up this little palette panel here, which shows you canvas lock and canvas target. These are pretty much self-explanatory, but what it means is we can lock what pixels we can draw onto, and we can target specific pixels within the canvas. So if I go to lock first and go down to secondary, that will lock any colour that is currently set to transparent, because that's our secondary colour. So I've got green on my primary colour. If I draw one continuous line, it will skip the transparent pixels because they are locked to editing we cannot edit those pixels, which is nice. And if we do undo, very good. And then if we go to target and secondary, that's the opposite. So now if we hold down the mouse button, nothing happens until we actually get to the transparent colours, and that means we can only draw on those colours. That's quite good actually. Undo, undo. So that's quite nice. What else can we do? Well, we can do it with ranges. So if we select all these pinks and reds here and go to none to target and locked selected, that basically says any pixel which is in this selection here will be locked for drawing. So let's get a nice colour there, pale blue grey, and try and draw, in theory, all these pinky colours, which are basically the cloak and the kneecaps, will be locked and nothing will happen. And there we go. So that's a quick way to lock colours for editing. And if I do the opposite, you take have a selection there first. In fact, let's do whatever these are, attachments, and target those and select green. Then basically all these bits of paper and whatever will turn green. There we go. This runs at 60 frames per second, 16.5 milliseconds per frame. Doesn't skip a beat. Rock solid. It's all done using OpenGL shaders. And we are not generating any extra colours. This is full index work. It only uses the colours that are in the palette, which is quite cool actually. So that's that. So we've got basic locking there. So we've got locking. We've got basic stencil work on the canvas colours. So selected, showing you that. Ramp was basically be using the colour ramps as a selection. Primary is the mouse button, secondary is the mouse button, and brush mask is for when we've got custom brushes implemented. And target is the same set there, so we can basically have two different masks set up at the same time for the canvas. We've also got area, that's not implemented at the moment, but basically that means we can limit drawing to a, at the moment, rectangular area of the canvas, turn it off and on, invert it. And we've also got brush, which will be used for custom brushes when we've got those plugged in. But yeah, canvas works quite well. So what else have we got? I said colour works, matte works, which is very similar to colour. When you've got a default brush, it'll be coming to effect more when you've got a custom brush. So we'll come back to that one in a future video. We've got shade. So what does shade do? Shade, like DPaint, it moves pixels depending on the left mouse button or the right mouse button. Left mouse button means pixels move down, and right mouse button means pixels move up. Down means it moves down its indices range. Up means it moves up the indices range, depending on its step value, which we can set here. So if we just select the range there of the cloak, and we'll change that up to 16, and we'll go to selection. There we go. So now when we click on the palette on the canvas, any pixels that are in this selection here will move up or down within this range. So we can actually deselect it, change it to green so it's nice and bright. So now again, only the cloak and the knee pads, whatever, will move. When I'm holding down the left mouse button, they should get darker or move down the range. Which they are doing, it's just difficult to see. Just make sure I selected them. There we go. very subtle, but you can see it. But what I can also do is go to RGB mode. So what this does is it will find the nearest colour in the palette and change the index to that one. So we'll search the entire palette and find the closest one when you shade. So if we go to this full selection here and do selection RGB, there we go. In fact, why is the step value so low? Oh, that's why. I've got selection. So I've got a a target selection applied. So I was only targeting certain pixels. So now if I do that again with selection RGB, there we go. There's no overdraw, so once you've clicked the mouse button once, you won't overdraw the pixels. There we go, as you can see. But if I let go and draw again, it will overdraw again. Quite nice. Just gonna do all that actually. I'll show you this again without the target selection applied. So if I go to selection index and select all these here, actually just select, make sure they are pink and red. And go to selection index, change that down because that would be quite abrupt. We'll go for 16 now do. So basically I'm limited to the pink selection, and we're going to move by 16 indices every time we shade. So there we go, you can see the cloak is just changing there, and just the cloak. We can highlight the kneecaps, the toes. As you can see, your colours are random because there's random blues and greys in this gradient too. But it gives us a nice weathered look. What we can do instead is, if we go to palette RGB, that's the entire palette. Now when we shade, it will affect everything. So that's basically like true RGB shading, but within the limits of the indices of the palette. So it's a quick way of getting some really dynamic shading into your pixel art. In fact, let's without actually creating any new colours. So there's darker, we can highlight. There we go. Highlight that side, darken that side. So yeah, so it's non-destructive. Pixel shading using just indices. So so I hope you find that interesting. It's looking more and more like DPaint every time I use it. I've tried to keep the same labeling as much as possible, pretty much for my benefit rather than anyone else's. The shortcut keys 1 to 0 help really well, and they work very well. Shift again is for your actual draw mode, and of course the lock-in works when you remember to turn it off when you're editing. So yeah, This is ongoing. If you want to keep up with what's the current status, please like and subscribe. If you want to leave us some comments or feedback, please feel free. This is being developed every day, and it's progressing quickly now when I'm just basically plugging in tools and messing with shaders. So the next thing to do is get area mask working, and then jump onto custom brushes. And yeah, then we can just basically just work through all these tools one by one, and these options at the bottom. But then yeah, it's getting pretty close to getting a beta out there. If people want to beta test it for me, let me know. I don't know what the process is. It's the first time I've tried to release a application. So yeah, I'm making this up as I go along, as I say every video. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next video and you found this interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.